Services Infrastructure at the Economic and Social Research Council. We're one of the research councils which make up the wider UK Research and Innovation organisation. Thank you so much, Pal, for inviting me to talk today. So I've been working in data infrastructures for almost 18 years now, actually. I began my career at the Office for National Statistics, where I worked in the Virtual Micro Data Laboratory, which was precursor to the Secure Research Service, which was introduced earlier on today. I've worked in infrastructures in government, in academia, and in the charity sector, and now I enjoy my role as a funder, and I get to fund people like Andy at the back and the LLC, for wider Population Research UK. So it's a really exciting role, and I also get to work with colleagues in other disciplines and councils, notably MRC, engineering, environment, etc. We've been working on a review over the last 2 or 3 years called Future Data Services. ESRC has invested in data infrastructure for many decades. In fact, we've been investing in data infrastructure for almost 60 years. We first funded the Data Archive in 1967 and the election studies at around the same time. So we've got quite a bit of pedigree in this area, I think. And the point of our Future Data Services review was to reflect on how the infrastructures we fund could change, adapt, and evolve in the future to carry on supporting the research community and the data custodian community. And over last summer, we ran a survey of researchers to find out their experiences of accessing data in trusted research environments. Now, I know we've talked a bit this morning about secure data environments. For me, these names have kind of come and gone over time. In the States, they call them secure enclaves, and in the UK, we used to call them research data centres. I'm assuming for the purpose that they are more or less the same thing, although they might operate in different sectors. So I'm going to talk about trusted research environments, but please think secure data environments too. And they're really here to say. This reference is from Andrew Morris, the director of HDR UK. So yeah, they are really designed to provide researchers with access to data in a single place. And the data should be accompanied by the analytical tools so that you can use data like a library. And we really wanted to find out from the research community how well this is working. So we ran our survey. It was a bit unfortunate that the election came in May, so we couldn't run the survey quite as long as we wanted to. We had to start a bit later, unfortunately. But we ran it over the summer for about 3 months. And I think we had about 100 responses. And I would say probably those 100 responses were split almost equally between researchers using the Secure Lab, which is the TRE delivered by the UK Data Service, and the other half were really respondents using the ONS Secure Research Service. And the ONS have seen these results, so I'm very happy to talk about them. So I thought I'd go through some of the key takeaways from that survey. First, data access should be transparent. Our researchers told us that they thought, on average, accessing data in a TRE exceeded over 12 months. Now, I've put something here that's quite important. I've talked about their perception, because actually the problem is very few of the TREs actually collect information which break down the data access journey and how much of that process is waiting for the trusted research environment of a data custodian to get back to the researcher, and how much time is where the application is resting with the researcher. And that needs to be clarified, because I think a lot of researchers quite understandably do complain about the length of time it takes, but within that time, the application will be with the researcher. And maybe 12 months seems quite good compared to 4 years, which we heard earlier. But we would like it, really much quicker than that, and it often is sometimes. We also understood from the research community that they really don't know the whole process. I mean, they understand quite often their part where they interact with a trusted research environment, but what they don't see is all the work that happens in the background with their application going off to the data owner, going off to an ethics committee, going off to, in our world, UK Statistics Authority. None of that was really clear to them. What it actually meant for us is that ESRC's data infrastructures were perhaps being blamed a bit unfairly for the delays in the system. But it's really important, therefore, that researchers understand what that whole process looks like. And our recommendation for future data services is that data custodians and trusted research environments should publish this information. And we would advocate that every TRE publishes the data access journey from the point of view of you getting a data access application form right through to actually getting access to the data inside the trusted research environment. More and more data custodians are doing this now, actually, but we would advocate this should be standard practice. Lesson number 2, training. Well, most researchers do have to do some form of training before they can access a trusted research environment. Our message here is keep doing that training, because actually 80% of our respondents said it was really helpful. They found it manageable, and it really led to efficiencies later on as they were using the trusted research environment. In social sciences, if you're accessing data from UK Data Service Secure Lab or the Secure Research Service, you do something called the Safe Researcher Training, and I think many other TREs run that training too. So by and large, respondents found that training very, very helpful, I think. Lesson number 3, onboarding. So a TRE really should be a home-from-home research environment for a researcher. That's the ideal. Often it's not always going to be the case. So ensuring that researchers have some kind of orientation and guidance to help them log in and use a TRE for the first time would be really helpful. And for example, the UK Data Service published their Secure Lab Guide, which is given to them with their username and password. So they've got something at hand to help them navigate the TRE system. That said, most researchers did find it easy to navigate around and find the data they had applied for and the documentation and the software. So I think just a little bit of orientation guidance at the beginning of the process would be helpful. Lesson number 4, software. So TREs will provide a suite of software, and I guess that will vary between TRE. What's really important to understand, though, is that software is part of a research process, and this is something I've certainly learned from colleagues in engineering. And actually, we do need to find some solutions for enabling researchers who want to develop their own software and bring those into the TREs to use with the data. I don't pretend for a moment that's easy, but I know it's been done, and I know the Edinburgh Parallel Computing Centre, for example, allows researchers to do this. And as I say, software itself is actually part of a research process, and software development is a research output, and that needs to be facilitated in TREs as well. Lesson number 5, compute. So researchers are, we found from our survey, researchers are increasingly becoming frustrated by the amount of compute available. Some of the models that they want to run are now much more compute and resource intensive, and that's not always available to them. So we've got to, as a TRE community, I think it's important that consideration to how this can be managed, and particularly access to large-scale computing and then even in some cases high-performance computing too. I know this is something that the SAIL Data Bank and EPC provide access to, but increasingly, you know, those particular centres don't have access to all the data sets. So this is a problem that TREs need to manage as a community, I think. 6, so requests to import data and requests to output results from the TREs. I would say from our results, this was where the pinch points came after access to the data. it's very likely, it's not, I mean, as somebody that's set up and run a TRE myself, I know that researchers like to bring in data from other sources to work with the confidential, sensitive data, and that again is about the nature of research. I mean, research often isn't undertaken with one particular source, and I think actually the principle of research is that you use many other resources to verify your findings. So it's not surprising that researchers want to work with other data. But researchers told us that the procedures for requesting either their code or publicly available data to be taken into their environment were really cumbersome. And I saw one example of a form that was 3 pages long, and researchers were telling us in the survey that it might take 2 weeks, for example, to have their code deposited into their environments. There's got to be a way of automating that or reducing that bureaucracy. It's a major challenge for research progress. And likewise with the statistical disclosure control of research outputs, they need to be. But what we really think is actually these procedures need to be reviewed regularly and with researchers, and that was one of from our interviews of the TREs themselves. There weren't many opportunities for researchers to actually provide that feedback, and even fewer times where we saw TREs really working with the research community to make these procedures efficient. So yes, I think there's a lot of scope there for engaging with the users to make sure these processes are minimized. Lesson number 7, a couple of other bits. So researchers told us that they can work with each other if they're in the same project group within a TRE, but the nature of research is actually that researchers tend to work collaboratively across projects, and TREs, for security reasons, don't necessarily facilitate this. So again, it's an area where we think some innovation could be introduced to enable researchers to share code, share documentation, or just to collaborate, even if they're not in the same project area. There's an information governance challenge there, but I guess that's what information governance is there to solve. I think secondly, the other thing I would say is that it's important for TREs to invest in technology and to invest in the people that run those services. And particularly to automate the repetitive and mundane. And again, that goes back to minimizing, the processes for access, importing data, output checking as well. When we did our review, we spoke to a few of the data infrastructures based both in France and the Netherlands and the US. And it was really interesting to see the new technology that was being developed to support TRE expansion there. For example, in France, CASD, which is the ONS equivalent, we're using a Meta AI to train up chatbots to help with support questions, which means that they can potentially expand the service to more and more researchers without having to employ more and more staff. So it's innovations like those that we'd really like to see being introduced and developed in the UK. I also know I'm saying these things, and somebody is going to put my hand up and say, well, you're a funder, you should be funding these things. And I'm glad to say that we are very keen to hear about funding ideas too. So I know there's a bill associated with these ideas. Finally, I wanted to say actually that what came through quite strongly with the survey was that the support staff were really fabulous, and researchers really appreciated the help and support given by staff, and recognised that actually staff aren't always working in very easy conditions, and a lot of these processes and procedures that they're implementing, they're not necessarily procedures that staff themselves would choose to implement. So I think I just wanted to make a recognition here that while researchers found some frustrations with TREs, they were also very supportive of the people working in those TREs. I think that's it. So thanks for listening. Very happy to take some questions.